and get roadside help and even customize it with your favorite Geico character. And I'm like, maybe, are there going to be snacks?
Everything you love about Geico, now mobile. Download the new Geico app today.
It's the PM show nationwide, coast to coast on CRN Digital Talk Radio. The star of the show, the one and only Fred Dryer.
I'm just looking through the newspapers here, folks.
Big day today.
Before we get into this stuff, and on page A2 of the Daily News.
Yes, what's in there?
Miss Alabama, Catherine Webb.
Oh, boy, did you see Brent Musburger go crazy over her?
Well, he should.
She was.
Hey, by the way, what's wrong with that? He wasn't sloppy. He wasn't ogling.
No.
He wasn't some drunk guy, lathered up. He wasn't lathered up.
I had a couple of beers in me.
Oh, she was pretty. He should say that.
She is dating the quarterback from the Crimson Tide. What's his name? I forget his name.
Yeah, AJ.
AJ or AJ.
AJ Twitter.
What is his name, Tomas? You can go ahead.
AJ McCarron.
AJ McCarron. Thank you.
Yeah,
there it is.
his dad owns McCarran Airfield in Las Vegas.
He does?
No.
Would you knock it off? Now you're doing my stuff here.
She says of what Musburger said, it was kind of nice. I didn't look at it as creepy at all. For a woman to be called beautiful, I don't see how that's an issue. That's it. That's it. If she handled it, then that's it. No more politics on this subject.
I like that a lot. And this, by the way,
that's it.
We do the show live Wednesdays at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern, and on this Wednesday, if you're listening to the replays on the weekend, the 100th birthday of former 37th President Richard Milhouse Nixon.
Dick, I got to tell you, I did like him as president. I thought he was out of line what he did.
Yeah, I think he was.
But it pales by what's going on right now. Believe me.
Hey, I think we had a balanced budget.
Well, I mean, look at that face. Yeah, it's really.
Let me make things perfectly clear.
Let me tell you something about this.
I want to say this perfectly clear.
Good. Go ahead. Keep going. Keep going.
You won't have Dick Nixon to kick around anymore.
That's right. Come on down to San Clemente, if you dare. All right.
Okay. Okay,
Let's
back to the show now.
Listen,
what are we talking about here
Ben
today?
Shapiro.
This is the guy that's got a radio show,
yeah,
right?
he's a talk show host here in Los Angeles. He's a media consultant. He's an attorney, political conservative commentator, so forth.
This guy knows his stuff. He's
very active and he's very aggressive towards this conservatism, which I always say, well, why don't you run for president? I'll vote for you. He wrote a book, a bestseller that's just out called Bullies.
Bullies.
And it's not a bar on Texas Street in San Diego. Do you know where Bullies is?
No, but
it's Bullies. I used to go there when I was a kid.
Is it still open?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Called Bullies in San Diego.
Yeah. Bullies right there on Texas Street, right off the 8th freeway in Texas.
8th in Texas.
I used to go before our games and get drunk, and then drive my motorcycle about 100 miles an hour. And get off at State College and then kind of slide into the stadium somehow for all my games. So I played my senior year drunk.
Okay.
So I got drafted by the Giants.
Because they said, this guy's pretty
No one knew, and nobody knew.
You were gliding.
Well, like right now, I'm completely drunk right now.
Thank you so much.
What are you going to do? Now, look, Ben Shapiro wrote Bullies. He wrote this book, and Sean Hannity interviewed him, and this builds to a little bit of a nice little blackout toward the end because it's my sentiment exactly about what to do about what's going on here with the mainstream media and liberalism. But here's Sean Hannity explaining this, and we're going to just kind of like roll into this conversation. So number one, Tommy.
We have highlighted the left's bullying tactics, from the race card, class warfare, to sexism, and generally violent rhetoric. Liberals and their friends in the media have been bullying their opponents for the last half-century, and the president, well, he's got to be taking his cues from the left wing and this history, because my next guest says Obama's team is all about using these strong-arm tactics to get their way. He's the author of a brand new book, Bullies: How the Left's Culture of Fear and Intimidation Silences Americans. Tonight, he's here to unveil the top 5 bullies working with the president.
And then we continue.
Number 5, Dan Savage on Real Time with Bill Maher. And let's roll the tape.
You Republicans are like Arafat.
Unfortunately, not exactly like him. I wish they were all dead. Just so you don't get charges of sexism because only Michelle Bachmann was. I sometimes think about on Rick Santorum.
Endless on that show in particular. Endless.
Yep. And Dan Savage is, believe it or not, one of the heads of the anti-bullying project at the White House, right? He runs the It Gets Better project. The White House has cut tapes for the It Gets Better project. Dan Savage made headlines a few months back when he bullied a bunch of Christian kids who walked out of one of his lectures where he was yelling about how the Bible was wrong and evil.
All right, let's go to Brian Williams and George Stephanopoulos next.
Are you prepared to leave this gathering and own the fact that the platform of this party allows a woman who has been raped, no exception, but to carry that child to term?
Battle brewing over who will be the next Secretary of State. No final decision yet from President Obama, but the frontrunner is UN Ambassador Susan Rice, and she ran into a buzzsaw yesterday on Capitol Hill when she met with Republican senators critical of her nomination.
It's so common. Look, if they interviewed Democrats the same way, I would be all's fair and love and war, but they don't.
They don't. You know, Andrew Breitbart, who's one of my mentors, Andrew used to say that the problem with the mainstream media is that they pretend they're objective. Look at George Stephanopoulos. The guy was a Clinton staffer. I mean, a Clinton staffer. It's like if Karl Rove were now the anchor, like the real anchor on a news program. Sure. I mean, it's craziness.
Did he run a war room?
He did. He ran the war room, and people were wondering, why did George Stephanopoulos, you remember during the debates, why did George Stephanopoulos suddenly bring up contraception, right, during the debates? He did it because that was part of the Obama administration's war on women, and he was playing a part in all of that.
Why do I not doubt they spoke ahead of time?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
All right, let's go to a quote by Richard Trumka and he says, he smears Mitt Romney, and he says what Mitt Romney said about half the country is a spit in the face of everyday American people who know what it means to work incredibly hard and still sometimes fail to get by. These so-called victims he dismisses with ease are victims of they're victims of a system that was rigged by Mitt Romney's backers, so they'd lose.
Yeah, Richard Trumka, head of the AFL-CIO, and he really stands for the entire union left that works hand in glove with the Obama administration to really bully the living hell out of Americans. I mean, they're not interested in us paying lower prices. They're not interested in us being employed. They're interested in Richard Trumka making $300,000 a year and meeting at the White House and making sure that he gets all
We've learned a lot
benefits.
about unions when they don't get their way in the last year, didn't we?
Right, exactly. I mean, watch them punch Steven Crowder in the face. I mean, when they don't get their way, especially public sector unions, the threat to public safety and the threat of public violence is very real.
Yeah, see, now we're getting down to it. We got a guy here who wrote a book about the specifics of what I think every Republican candidate, no matter
Bullies is the
whether
book.
it's local or whatever it might be, they're going to be bullied by the party, and they're going to be, and that bullying is delivered by the mainstream media, and the Republican Party has to be able to come up with a way of fighting it. And when we come back, we're going to hear the last two of what Ben Shapiro has to say about who are the most obnoxious bullies.
Doesn't Karl Rove, though, host a newscast already, isn't he, with Bill O'Reilly?
I hope not.
You notice he hasn't been on since the election. Since
He's
misnamed the whole thing
he's
here.
deep sea fishing somewhere.
We'll continue straight ahead. The PM show. The one and only Fred Dreyer. Email Fred incoming at crni.net.
Hi, this is Larry Minetti. I played Rick on Magnum P.I. This winter, you've got to escape to Hawaii and stay at the Hilton Hawaiian Village Waikiki Beach Resort. Come lounge by your